Yan, good morning and welcome sa lahat. Thank you pala Miss Rose for the introduction and welcome sa lahat ng attendees sa webinar natin on food safety. Okay, so start na tayo, no? Wait lang. Ayan. Okay, so what I'm showing you now ay compilation ng cases of hospitalization and even death na related sa food dito sa Pilipinas. So, itong mga cases na to, suspected sila of contamination with microorganism. And kung makikita nyo dito, merong spoilage, spoiled lechon daw. Tapos dito naman may staphylococcal poisoning. So with this report, laging nire-remind ng authorities yung public na mag-ingat when it comes to preparation of food items. And aside sa sakit na naidudulot nito, 'di ba? Halimbawa sa mga vendors na ah, kasama or included dito sa mga issues na to, naaapektuhan yung negosyo nila or yung kita nila. So pwedeng mauwi sa pagkalugi or even closure ng business. And for big companies naman, so itong ganitong klaseng issue can result to food loss or food waste dahil sa mga food recalls and even yung filing ng mga lawsuits. So that is why food safety should be a public health concern. So for today's talk, okay, so we will have an overview ng foodborne diseases. So ano-ano ba yung mga types ng foodborne diseases? Ano yung signs and symptoms at sino yung mga at risk. So following the overview is yung causative agents of FBD. So ano-ano ba yung mga nagkakos ng foodborne disease? Ano yung specific na signs and symptoms? Tapos ano yung mga pagkain na link dun sa mga foodborne diseases na yon? So third topic natin ay FBD in the Philippines. So short review ng mga FBDO cases sa Philippines, and yung last would be some preventive measures para ma-avoid natin yung occurrence ng foodborne diseases. Okay. So yung foodborne disease, ito ay sickness caused by pathogenic microorganisms, parasites, or chemical substances. So kung mapapansin nyo, highlighted dito yung pathogenic. So pathogenic meaning disease-causing. And to differentiate yung pathogenic from spoilage, yung spoilage, hindi siya laging, nakaka-cause siya ng pagkasira ng food, pero hindi siya lagi na pathogenic. And the same goes with pathogenic. So hindi lahat ng pathogenic ay spoilage microorganisms din. So, pag spoilage microorganisms din, merong manifestation to sa food na pwede nating ma-observe, unlike kapag pathogenic. Kaya, mahirap, mahirap talaga na parang sumugal pagdating sa pagkain, pag hindi mo sure kung safe pa ba to or hindi. So, may I know kung familiar kayo kung paano malalaman na spoiled na yung food or panis na yung food? Pwedeng pa-chat sa sa chat box. Paano natin nalalaman na panis na yung pagkain? May sumasagot ba, Miss Rose?
Yes, ma'am. So mostly ang sagot po nila ay sa amoy, foul odor, maasim ang lasa, moldy, may mold o sensory. Ayan, so may bula, may amoy, of
Yan.
flavor, of odor. Yun po.
Ayan, tama naman. So, tama naman. So, pagka spoilage yung nakasira sa food natin, spoilage microorganism, yan, meron siyang manifestations. Yun nga lang, pagka yung pathogenic microorganisms yung nag-grow, minsan walang indicators na nandun na pala sila. Okay. So for the types naman ng FBD, so sabi dito, it can be infectious or toxic in nature. So kapag infectious yung FBD, so ibig sabihin, this is particular for microorganisms, ano? So ibig sabihin, pag infectious in nature, yung mikrobyo mismo, yung nagkakos ng sakit. So it targets a specific organ kapag napunta na siya sa katawan. And kapag infectious yung nature ng FBD, uh, it takes longer to develop yung mga signs and symptoms. So usually, 6 to 24 hours dahil nag-grow pa yung mikrobyo pag nakain na natin. So ibig sabihin, present siya sa food in very small amounts. Tapos pag nakain natin, sa tiyan natin, dun pa lang sila magmumultiply. Tapos yung second type is yung toxic naman in nature. So toxic, ibig sabihin may toxin. So itong toxin na to, napoproduce na siya dun mismo sa pagkain pa lang. So yan, kung toxin yung na-produce, hindi natin malalaman kasi hindi naman bubula yung pagkain, hindi rin yan mag-aamoy may foul odor or yung maasim na lasa, 'di ba? So hindi natin yan malalaman. So pagka na-ingest natin yung food na may toxin, so saglit lang yung development ng symptoms nito, usually mga 2 to 4 hours. And ang delikado with toxins, ang mga toxins ng mikrobyo kapag sa food na po-produce mismo, they are heat resistant. So kahit na i-reheat mo pa yung pagkain, mamamatay lang yung mikrobyo na nag-produce ng toxin, but the toxin is still there. So, ano pa rin siya, unsafe pa rin siya for us consumers. And then, meron pang third type, combination naman itong dalawa. So, it's toxico-infection. So, ibig sabihin, meron munang invasion ng cells. Pagka na-ingest natin yung food, magkakaroon muna ng invasion of cells. And then, tsaka siya magpaproduce ng toxin. So, parang double whammy, ganyan. Okay. So, when it comes to, yung number of individuals affected. So, kapag merong 2 or more individuals na nag-develop ng similar signs and symptoms after consuming a specific food, of course, dapat the same food and drink. So, ang term na natin doon is an outbreak, a foodborne disease outbreak. And sabi, yung foodborne diseases daw, they are often underestimated kasi they are unreported and nahihirapan na mag-establish ng relationship between the illness and yung food. Kasi usually, pagka nag-report, yung food, wala na, naubos na pala. Tapos isa pa na pwedeng reason, halimbawa tayong mga Pilipino, when we experience diarrhea, ganyan, or masakit ang tiyan, 'di ba, hahayaan na lang natin hahayaan nating matapos, magte-take lang tayo ng loperamide, ng magpupukari, Gatorade, ganyan. Tapos hindi na tayo pupunta ng ospital. So, dahil dun sa mga events na ganon, hindi natin trace if foodborne disease na ba yun. Okay, so according to the WHO, so these are the factors na nag-i-increase ng exposure natin sa foodborne diseases. And this is especially true for developing countries. So yung poor access to water. So yung water, siyempre yan yung ginagamit natin na inumin first, tapos panghugas ng food natin. And as ingredient din sa food natin. So dito naman sa Philippines, meron naman tayong PNS for drinking water. And also sa ibang mga standards din for food products and even for code of practice, ang lagi ding required is the use of potable water. And unfortunately pala sa Philippines, marami pa rin tayong deep well. So, yun yung isang, nag-i-increase din ng exposure natin sa FBD. Marami pa rin gumagamit ng deep wells. Okay, so second, yung unsafe transportation and inadequate storage of food. So during transportation and storage, pwedeng magkaroon ng temperature fluctuations, and these events can promote the growth of microorganisms. So dapat yung mga chilled and frozen na items, dapat ikikip din sila na chilled and frozen. Tapos yung ibang items naman should have secured packaging material. So dito pumapasok yung, 'di ba, may primary packaging, may secondary packaging. Tapos yung iba may tertiary pa nga. So yun yung mga nagpo-protect sa food products natin para ma-maintain yung integrity niya. Okay, so next ay insufficient knowledge of safe food processing and handling practices. For a while po ha. And then last yung compromised immune response. So ito yung mga elderlies and yung may mga existing conditions na. Okay. So what are the signs and symptoms of FBD? So merong abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, headache, and fever. So these are just the common symptoms of foodborne diseases. Pero pwede itong ma-extend into more serious effects. And pwede pang mag-lead to death. So yung mildness or yung severity ng symptoms, nagbavari to sa tao. So depende siya sa immunity natin. Depende rin sa amount of food na nakain natin, and of course yung amount of microorganism or nung toxin na present sa food. Okay, so now, who are at risk for contracting FBDs? So there are 4 groups. Yan. So first, yung infants and young children. So kasama sila sa risk group kasi developing pa lang yung kanilang immune system. So next, yung mga pregnant women. So yung pregnant women, mababa ang kanilang immune system kapag buntis sila. And aside sa mga sarili nila, they have an unborn child na may chance na matransfer sa kanila yung foodborne disease. So kapag na-transfer yun sa bata, pwede yung mag-result into abortion, stillbirth, or malformation sa fetus. So third, yung elderly. So syempre, yung mga matatanda, habang nag-age, bumababa ang immune response, ang immunity. And last, yung immunocompromised individual. So, ito naman yung mga tao na may existing health conditions like yung mga cancer patients, individuals with kidney and liver diseases, and people living with HIV. Okay. So, pero syempre, kahit meron tayong risk group, wala naman talagang safe from contracting FPD. So, lahat tayo may possibility na magkaroon ng FBD. Okay, so this ends the brief overview about FBD. So, with this brief overview, sa tingin niyo ba ay nagkaroon na kayo ng foodborne disease? Meron po bang sumagot sa chat box natin? Kung sa tingin nila ay nagkaroon na sila ng foodborne disease.
Yes po, all yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. Ako din eh. Kahit na micro ko, nabiktima na rin ako. Okay. So, moving on po. So, ano na nga ba yung mga nagpo-cause ng foodborne diseases? So, may apat na nagko-cause ng foodborne diseases. So, yung bacteria, yung viruses, yung parasites, and some chemical substances. Okay. So, for bacteria, okay, so first sa ating listahan ay Salmonella. So, yung Salmonella, it causes two foodborne diseases. So, yung first natin dito is yung non-typhoidal salmonellosis. So, this is associated with the serovars, enteriditis, and typhimurium. So, this is linked to the consumption of eggs, meat, poultry, unpasteurized milk or juice, cheese, contaminated raw fruits, and vegetables. So, meron akong tanong. Yan. So, what spread has been linked to several cases of Salmonella outbreak? So, madalas sa US, pero meron na rin dito sa Philippines na isang case. May nakasagot na po ba?
Wala pa, ma'am. Yes pa rin
Ah,
ang nakatype.
ano pong palaman? Palaman sa
Ayan, may
tinapay.
sumunod po. Peanut butter.
Peanut butter. Peanut butter nga ba? Yes, peanut butter. So, salmonella. So, sa standards ng peanut butter, kasama po ang salmonella sa mga quality indices or safety indices, sorry. Okay, so going back. So, ang salmonellosis, ang incubation period po is 6 to 48 hours and yung signs and symptoms include diarrhea, fever, abdominal cramps, and vomiting. Okay, so second naman na kinakos ng salmonella, so ito na yung typhoid fever. So, this is caused by Salmonella typhi and or paratyphi. So, similar lang, this is transmitted via consumption of contaminated food products, pero much common sa sewage contaminated water, and then fruits and vegetables since pwede siyang cross-contaminate during sa production process pa lang. Kasi sa mga pagdidilig. So, yung incubation period is 1 to 3 weeks. And then signs and symptoms, high fever, lethargy, gastrointestinal symptoms, headache, achiness, loss of appetite. And then ito yung sigurong characteristic niya, yung rash of flat, rose-colored spots. So, yan. Yan yung rash. Parang baby. Okay, so second is yung Escherichia coli or E. coli. So, karamihan ng strains naman ng E. coli ay harmless. Pero, the pathogenic variants can cause gastrointestinal diseases. So, pagdating sa pathogenic E. coli, there are 7 pathotypes. Pero out of the 7 pathotypes, meron lang tayong i-highlight dito na important pathotypes. So, yung first one is the enterohemorrhagic E. coli or EHEC. So, yung pinakasikat na EHEC strain is the E. coli 0157H7. So, yan. Napoproduce siya ng higatoxin. So, ito yung nagbibigay sa kanya ng virulence. Yan yung nagkakos ng sakit. So, it causes hemorrhagic colitis. Hemorrhagic colitis, namamaga yung large intestine. So, yun yung ina-attack. Leading to hemolytic uremic syndrome, HUS, and renal failure. Signs and symptoms include severe bloody diarrhea, abdominal pain, vomiting, and this appears 1 to 8 days after infection. So ito pala yung, excuse me po pala, figure nung hemorrhagic colitis. So dun sa colon, ayun, may pamamaga. So dito rin nag-emerge yung bloody diarrhea. So pag nagpa-pass ng stool. So, yung second na i-highlight natin dun sa 7 pathotypes is the enterotoxigenic E. coli or ETEC. So, ito yung common cause of traveler's diarrhea. Incubation niya is 1 to 3 days. And then, yung signs and symptoms include watery diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and some vomiting. Okay. So, after E. coli, we have Bacillus cereus. So, yung common name of the illness is Bacillus cereus food poisoning. So, this microorganism produces two types of toxin. So, yung emetic and yung diarrheal. So, for the emetic syndrome type, mabilis yung onset ng illness. So, meron lang 1 to 5 hours of incubation. And then yung symptoms characterized by nausea and vomiting. And this is related to the consumption of rice dishes, pasta, noodles, and pastry. So, sa rice dishes, pinaka-popular dito yung fried rice. So, meron silang tinatawag na fried rice syndrome. So, paano nga ba siya nakaka-survive? Or bakit siya associated? So, i-take natin na example yung sa fried rice. So, yung Bacillus cereus, pag niluto mo initially yung rice, so it is possible na may nakaka-survive na endospores during the cooking process. So, ayan. So, dito sa picture, if you can clearly see microscopic picture to ng Bacillus cereus. So, yung mga clear dito sa cell, so yan yung kanyang mga spores. So, yan. So, nakaka-survive siya sa heat treatment. Such that yung heat treatment na yun ay actually nagiging, ano pa niya, activation. So, para lang siyang kinikiliti, di siya namamatay. So, pag nag-activate siya, pwede siyang mag-germinate into its vegetative cell and pwede na siya doong mag-proliferate. So, second naman is yung diarrheal syndrome type. Ito mas matagal yung incubation period. It takes 8 to 16 hours. And then yung sickness is characterized by diarrhea and abdominal pain. This is commonly associated with meat, soups, vegetables, pudding, sauces, and milk products. Yeah. So next is Listeria monocytogenes. Okay, so yung common name of the illness is listeriosis, and this is actually one of the leading causes of death from foodborne illnesses. So this is commonly associated with ready-to-eat food. So example, yung deli meat. Okay, so magpapasko na. Ingat tayo kasi ito yung ginagamit natin, di ba, sa charcuterie boards natin. And unpasteurized milk. So bakit nga ba nakaka-survive siya dito? So ano yung link between listeria and deli meat? So yung listeria, it can be present sa mga food contact surfaces. Tapos, ang deli meats naman, ito usually is-slice lang, tapos pwede mo nang itabi. And deli meats are ready to eat. So, pagka-slice mo, kung merong listeria doon sa knife na nagamit mo, so mapupunta siya doon sa slice na deli meat na for consumption mo na, and doon sa mas malaking portion ng meat. So, yung sa pagkinain mo na, syempre may infect ka na nun. Tapos yun naman sa tinabi mo, dun sa mas malaking portion ng deli meat, if you put it in the refrigerator, yung listeria is capable of surviving refrigerated conditions. So, when ingested, it can cause gastrointestinal symptoms, which can be observed 9 to 48 hours, after 9 to 48 hours. Okay. So, for pregnant women, they can experience mild flu-like symptoms, and infection can lead to premature delivery or stillbirth. For the elderly and immunocompromised individuals naman, they can develop bacteremia or meningitis. So, isa pala ito sa mga foodborne diseases na may serious effects sa mga high-risk individuals. Okay, so, next ay Campylobacter. So, the common name of the illness is Campylobacteriosis. And specifically for our example, yung Campylobacter jejuni, it is the most common cause of diarrheal illness. So this can be transmitted to humans via consumption of contaminated food products, like your chicken, and then unpasteurized milk and contaminated water. So yung Campylobacter, normal flora talaga siya ng mga domestic and wild animals. So, including chicken. So, yung kapag nagdidress ng chicken and even sa mga poultry plants, diba? Kino-chlorinate, washing with chlorinated water para ma-remove yung mga mikrobyo na yan. So, yung onset of signs and symptoms occur after 2 to 5 days, characterized by diarrhea, cramps, fever, and vomiting. So next is Vibrio. So there are two common species causing foodborne diseases, Vibrio cholerae and Vibrio parahemolyticus. So for Vibrio cholerae, according to the WHO, so it causes cholera, and according to the WHO, yung cholera daw ay disease of poverty because it affects people na may inadequate access to safe water and basic sanitation. So yung cholera or Vibrio cholerae affects the small intestine. So it can be transmitted through ingestion of contaminated seafood or contaminated water sources. So yung mga, yan, so yan yung examples ng seafood na pwedeng maging food vehicle nitong Vibrio cholerae. So the incubation period is around 12 hours up to 5 days. Severe cases are characterized by acute watery diarrhea and muscle cramping. So this may lead to hypovolemic shock, hypoglycemia, and metabolic acidosis, and then eventually death. So actually, it all starts with the diarrhea. So nagkakaroon ng loss of fluid, electrolyte imbalance, and yung low blood sugar. Kaya nangyayari itong hypovolemic shock, hypoglycemia, and metabolic acidosis. So next na species is yung Vibrio parahemolyticus. So it causes gastroenteritis and affects the stomach and the intestine. So this is also linked to raw or inadequately cooked seafood. And yung signs and symptoms can be observed after 4 to 96 hours. It is characterized by nausea, vomiting, headache, abdominal cramps, slight fever, chills, and watery diarrhea. So ito nga pala yung leading cause of FBD associated with consumption of seafood. Okay, so next is Clostridium. So there are two common species of Clostridium that causes foodborne diseases. First is the Clostridium botulinum. So it causes foodborne botulism. So it produces a lethal neurotoxin. So yun yung nagbibigay ng virulence sa Clostridium botulinum. So the signs and symptoms appear 12 to 36 hours after ingestion of contaminated food. And initially, it causes nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, but this can lead to neurologic dysfunctions such as visual impairment and acute flaccid paralysis. So, kanina nabanggit nga na Clostridium botulinum produces a neurotoxin. So, itong neurotoxin, it prevents the nerve cells from sending signals sa ating muscle cells. Kaya nagkakaroon ng flaccid paralysis. Yan. So, dahil doon, it can also result in respiratory failure and death. And this is commonly associated with improperly canned foods. So actually, yung infection naman with Clostridium botulinum is very rare kasi established naman na itong canning pagdating sa industry, 'di ba? Pero yung mga homemade, yung mga binabottle, kinakan sa bahay, yun yung dapat mag-take ng precautionary measures kasi we are not sure kung yung process nila can actually kill yung Clostridium botulinum. Okay, so next is yung Clostridium perfringens. So it causes perfringens food poisoning. Yung signs and symptoms appear 8 to 16 hours, characterized by intense abdominal cramps and watery diarrhea. So, ang infection na to, it occurs after ingestion of highly contaminated foods. And this is common for meat, poultry, gravy, dried pre-cooked foods, and yung mga time and temperature abused food. Okay. So, next is yung Staphylococcus aureus. So, yung common name of the illness is staphylococcal food poisoning. And yung major reservoir nitong microorganism na ito ay tayo. So, yung humans. So, it is a common commensal of the skin and mucosal membrane of humans. And it can be transmitted via direct contact or indirectly through skin fragments or respiratory tract droplets. So this is commonly associated with unrefrigerated or improperly refrigerated meals, wherein yung cross-contamination happens during the preparation part. Yan. So, ito yung example, egg salad or potato salad and yung mga cream pastries. Okay. So, Staphylococcus aureus produces an enterotoxin. Kaya, isa siya sa mga microorganisms of importance pagdating sa public health. So, pagka na-infect tayo with the enterotoxin, there is sudden onset of signs and symptoms which occurs after 1 to 6 hours, characterized by severe nausea, vomiting, and abdomen. So, yung enterotoxin produced by Staphylococcus aureus, very potent siya. So, maliit lang na amount yung kailangan para mag-elicit siya ng signs and symptoms. And it is also resistant to heat treatment and low pH. So diarrhea and fever may also be present. And it can lead to toxic shock syndrome. So yung toxic shock syndrome, this is an effect of numerous immune response. So yung enterotoxin Staphylococcus aureus is considered a super antigen. So it can elicit multiple immune response, which leads to toxic shock syndrome. So next is Shigella. So common name of the illness is shigellosis or bacillary dysentery. So merong 4 species, Shigella sonnei, Flexneri, Boydii, and Dysenteriae. And among these 4 species, yung Shigella dysenteriae is linked sa mahahabang epidemics in different countries. And ito din yung deadly na species ng Shigella. So yung primary route of transmission is person-to-person contact. Pero transmission can also occur through contamination of food and water. So yung Shigella is actually present in environment na compromised yung sanitation tsaka yung hygiene. So actually walang specific type of food that is associated with Shigella kasi any type of food, whether cooked or uncooked, basta na cross-contaminate ng individual na merong Shigella, so makakontaminate na yan. Yan. So this is also associated with traveler's diarrhea. So yung signs and symptoms can occur after 24 to 48 hours and characterized by abdominal cramps, fever, and diarrhea. Okay. So tapos na tayo sa bacteria, medyo mahaba. So next ay viruses. So for viruses, meron lang akong 3 na examples. Okay, so first is yung hepatitis virus. So meron ulit akong question. How many types of hepatitis viruses are there? Meron kayang makasagot? Maraming students, so baka nadaanan nyo na to sa subjects nyo on micro or medical micro. Any answer po?
Miss Cla, from
Yes
April
po.
Montejo, 3.
Apo.
From
3,
Princess Tumagkaw, 5. From Miss
5.
Jambalaya, 2. Alexandra Maduma, 5. O, ayan, nasi-shoutout ko na din sila. So, John B, 3. Alain Alejandre, 3. Gian Casanova, 3. John Ray Malia, 5. So, Margaret Taday, 4. Fatma Jasmia, 3. Ayan, Seth Ezra, 5. Mark, 5. Raijun, 3. Shello, 5. Shindakoni Sponge, 5.
Mm.
Rovin,
Oh.
5. Rainzon, 5. So, ayan, mostly 5 na po yung mga sumunod.
Magkaklase ba yan?
5, 3, and 4. So, may sumagot po ng 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yan. So, yung correct answer is 5. So, ano ba yun? Ano yung mga hepatitis viruses na yan? So, meron kang hepatitis A, B, C, D, and E. So, yung related sa food ay yung hepatitis A and E. So, it is transmitted through the oral fecal route. So, ibig sabihin, oral fecal route, nasa-shed yung virus sa feces. Tapos, makakontaminate niya yung food, kaya doon papasok yung oral kasi sinusubo natin yung food. Okay, so una, yung hepatitis A virus. So, ito yung isa sa mga common foodborne virus pathogen. So this is associated with raw produce, contaminated drinking water, uncooked foods, and shellfish. It can also spread through direct or indirect person-to-person contact. So, ibig sabihin, yun, yung cross-contamination nga ng food or food services, pwedeng mangyari. So, yung onset ng signs of symptoms, medyo matagal. So, it's 15 to 50 days. Pero on the average, ang incubation period of hepatitis A virus is 28 days. And then yung infection niya is characterized by diarrhea, dark urine, jaundice, and flu-like symptoms. So, kung hindi kayo familiar sa jaundice, jaundice is the yellowing of the white portion of our eyes and yung skin natin. Pagdating naman dun sa flu-like symptoms, nakaka-experience sila ng fever, nausea, and abdominal pain. So next, syempre, yung hepatitis E virus. So ito naman yung pinaka-common na cause ng acute viral hepatitis. So transmitted din siya via contaminated water and raw or undercooked foods. So itong hepatitis E virus, unfortunately, pwede rin itong matransfer kapag pregnant women yung na-infect. Pwede niya itong matransfer sa kanyang unborn child. The incubation period is 2 to 6 weeks. And yung symptoms, signs and symptoms are fever, reduced appetite, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and hepatomegaly or yung paglaki ng liver. So it can lead to liver failure and death. So last for the viruses, yung norovirus. So yung common name of the illness is viral gastroenteritis, winter diarrhea, acute non-bacterial gastroenteritis. So yung primary mode of transmission din is fecal oral route. And itong virus na to is actually waterborne. So this is linked to the consumption of raw produces and contaminated water, drinking water. So yung incubation period is 12 to 48 hours. And yung signs and symptoms include nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramping, diarrhea, fever, and headache. So, move on na tayo sa parasite. So, bago pala tayo mag-start sa parasites, i-excuse nyo na ako kasi I'll be showing some pictures ng parasites. Pero anti lang naman na examples. So, yung first example is yung Trichinella spiralis. The common name of the illness is trichinellosis or trichinosis. So, ito yung adult stage ng Trichinella spiralis. So, this is associated with consumption of raw or uncooked meat, commonly pork or yung game meat. So, yung game meat, ito yung meat from a wild animal na yung nahuhuli during hunting. So, yung incubation niya is 3 to 14 days. And then, yung signs and symptoms include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and pain in gut area. So, this can further progress into fever or chills, muscle and joint pain, itching or rash, and yung swelling ng face. So, siguro nag-wonder kayo, paano naman natin mai-ingest para hindi ba natin mapapansin na may parasite pala yung pork meat halimbawa. So, let me show you the life cycle. Yan. So, sabi dito, ayan. So, nandito siya ito yung pork, tapos ito naman yung game meat. So, yung Trichinella spiralis pala, they are capable of forming cysts sa muscle ng meat. Yan. So, to show you a better picture ng encysted larvae sa muscle. So, ito. So, ngayon, if this is present dun sa meat na na-ingest natin, so, punta siya sa stomach. So, yung meat, syempre, i-act on ng mga gastric juices natin, enzymes. So, mare-release ngayon itong encysted larvae. Yan, na-release na siya. Tapos, nagkaroon ng adult. So, pwede silang magparami dyan. So, yung larva, ayan, pwede na niya ngayong i-attack yung intestine. Pwede din na mag-form ulit siya ng cyst. And i-deposit niya mismo yung cyst sa muscle naman. So, yan. So, yan yung life cycle ng Trichinella spiralis. Okay, so next, yung Entamoeba histolytica. So, common name of the illness is amoebiasis, and yung primary vehicle for infection is water. So, dahil primary vehicle niya is water, this is yung contaminated water kapag ginamit for irrigation sa pagpa-plant. So, yan. Pwede niyang makontaminate yung salad, yung vegetables, fruits and vegetables na ginagamit natin for salads, and even yung consumption ng raw fruits and vegetables. So, yung Entamoeba histolytica is also capable of forming cyst. And one cyst can initiate an infection after 2 to 4 weeks of incubation. So, yung signs and symptoms include fulminating dysentery. So, fulminating, parang sumasabog. Bloody diarrhea, weight loss, fatigue, and abdominal pain. So, for appreciation, again, I am sharing yung life cycle ng amoebiasis. So, dito, pinapakita yung mature cyst. So, pag na-ingest, so dito, pwede na siyang, parang i-form niya yan, yung trophocyte. So, ito yung capable of multiplication. Yan. So, yung trophocyte, so pwedeng maka-infect, pwede na siyang lalabas na pala siya. Tsaka yung cyst. Pero yung trophocyte, pagka nakalabas siya sa katawan, actually madali to mamatay. So, yung cyst, yung resistant na form niya. So, meron din ditong pinakita na kung saan siya pwedeng pumunta. So, pwede siyang mag non-invasive colonization sa large intestine. Tapos, intestinal disease din nagkakos. Or pwede namang extra-intestinal diseases. So, pwede silang mag-travel sa liver, sa lungs, and even sa brain. So, kaya din, I don't know if you have experienced amoebiasis or may kakilala kayo na amoebiasis. So, once nagka-amoebiasis ka, dahil na nagpo-form ng cyst, so nasa iyo na yun. Nasa iyo na yung Entamoeba histolytica. So, pag bumaba ang immune response mo, may chance na mag-form siya, maging active siya, and mag-cause siya ng disease. Yan. So, next, yung Cyclospora cayetanensis. So, yung common name is cyclosporiasis. And this is also considered as a cause of traveler's diarrhea. For immunocompromised and immunocompetent individuals, nakakapag-cause siya ng prolonged sickness. And this is linked to the consumption of fresh produce like lettuce, berries, and basil. The incubation period is 1 to 14 days. And yung signs and symptoms include watery diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, stomach cramp, fever, and fatigue. Yan. So, last na. So, Toxoplasma gondii. So, sino dito ang mga cat lovers? May cat lovers po dito. Ikaw ba, Miss Rose, cat lover or dog lover?
Dog, Miss
Oh,
Cla.
dog.
So, tingnan natin sa ating participants, cat lovers. Ayan, hala, ako po. Sabi ni Ma'am Zaira May Miliano.
Si ma'am lang yung sumagot. So, bakit? Ba't ko kaya tinanong kung sino mga cat lovers dito?
Sa pupo yan eh.
Ayan, may mga sumasagot
So,
pa po. Me, ganyan, cat. So, John
ayan.
Carlo Canlapan, John Ray Malia.
Yan. So, tinanong ko kasi, yung Toxoplasma gondii, ang primary reservoir niya ay cats. And nagkakos siya ng toxoplasmosis. Yan. So, this protozoan can be transmitted via ingestion of contaminated food or water. So, once infected, halimbawa yung di halimbawa, yung pregnant women when infected, so pwedeng magkaroon ng transplacental transmission. So, pwede niyang maipasa sa kanyang unborn child and cause congenital toxoplasmosis. So, yung signs and symptoms include fever, rash, headache, muscle aches and pain, and swelling of the lymph node. So, pregnant women and their unborn child and adult individuals with immunocompromised systems are at risk. So, dun sa unborn child, pwedeng maging effect ng congenital toxoplasmosis include mental retardation, seizures, blindness, and even death. And for immunocompromised individuals naman, they may develop encephalitis and neurological disorders. And pwede rin mag-result to death. And aside from humans, nakaka-apekto din ang toxoplasma sa livestock. So, as seen in this life cycle. So, ito si pusa. So, yung toxoplasma, nasished niya through its feces. So, yan. Pwedeng ma-pick up natin siya dun sa cat litter box. Tapos pwede din naman if na-i-infect niya kasi yung water table kapag kung sa soil malapit na yung water table sa soil kung saan siya nagpupupo. So doon pwede magkaroon ng cross-contamination. So pwede din ma-pick up ng livestock. Actually, yung livestock na apektuhan din kasi it can affect yung fertility ng livestock and cause abortion. So, if you have toxoplasma, so yun nga kanina, pwede siyang ma-transmit doon sa unborn child. And if nag-donate ka din ng dugo, so pwede siyang mapasa through blood transfusion. So, next, yung chemical substances. So, nabanggit ni Miss Rose na nagkaroon kami ng series of food safety seminars. So, doon sa previous, marami nang na-discuss doon actually about chemical substances. Pero pahagingan ko lang din. So, included sa chemical substances na pwedeng mag-cause ng foodborne diseases ay yung naturally occurring toxins. So, this includes yung mga mycotoxins, marine biotoxins, and yung cyanogenic glycosides. So, for mycotoxins, so ito yung toxins na pinoproduce ng fungi. So, they can be found, yung fungi can be found in grain, cereals, coffee, beans, and dried fruits. So usually, sa storage, doon pwedeng tumubo itong mga fungi and mag-produce ng mycotoxins. So these are some examples of fungi and their toxins. So we have Aspergillus flavus and Aspergillus parasiticus, sila yung nagpa-produce ng aflatoxin. Aspergillus ocraceus, Aspergillus niger, and Penicillium verrucosum. So sila naman ang nagpa-produce ng ochratoxin. Fusarium, nagpa-produce ng fumonisin. Penicillium, nagpa-produce ng patchouli, and Fusarium graminearum, nagpa-produce naman ng zearalenone. So, itong mga compounds na to are actually carcinogenic or cancer-causing. Okay, so next, yung marine biotoxins. So, ito naman ay produced by phytoplanktons or yung mga dinoflagellates. So, these are examples of phytoplankton. So, this one is Pyrodinium bahamense. So, ito yung nagkakos ng red tide. So, yung toxin na pinaproduce niya is saxitoxin. And ito namang isa is Gambier discotoxicus. So, ito ang nagpo-produce ng ciguatoxin. Ayan. So, example, yung ciguateratoxin, saxitoxin, and brevetoxin. Ang brevetoxin naman is produced by Gymnodium breve. So, yung symptoms can range from gastrointestinal, respiratory, neurological, and muscular problems. So, other chemical substances. So, this may include byproducts of industrial processes, contaminants due to pollution, and materials used during food processing and production. So, example, yung mga persistent organic pollutants like dioxins and polychlorinated biphenyls. And then heavy metals like lead, cadmium, mercury, and arsenic. So, itong mga chemical substances na to, yung, ano ba to? Yung disease na pwedeng mag-develop dito ay medyo matagal kasi nagbabioaccumulate to sa katawan natin bago sila actually mag-cause ng disease. So, aside from this chemical substances, pwede rin na mag-cause ng foodborne illness yung cleaning and sanitizing materials and pesticides. So, usually, yung mga cases related to these items naglilid agad-agad sa death. Yan. So, dito naman tayo sa FDD in the Philippines. So, ready na ba kayo para sa isa ulit na pop quiz? So, anong mga food items ba yung alam nyo na na-link na sa foodborne diseases sa Philippines? Please chat your answers.
Street foods daw, ma'am. Sabi ni Ma'am Seth
Food.
Ezra.
Sige po. Ano pa? Meron pa ba?
Fish from Miss Cresta David. Pansit from John D. Ayan, so street foods din po yung ibang sagot. Ayan, pwede nyo pong specify, no? So, ano pong klaseng street food? Kasi we have lots of street foods. May mais, may fish balls. Ayan, so pasta. Fish. Kilawin po, undercooked kasi. Ayan, sabi ni Ma'am Alexandra Maduma. Seafoods, isaw, kakanin, buko juice.
Dami.
Shellfishes. Yan, may mga sumasagot pa po.
Yan. So, ano na, magbigay na ako. So, marami silang na-mention, no? And examples lang din to. Hindi ko na-cover lahat. So, kasama, durian candy. Naaalala nyo pa ba? Siyempre, spaghetti lagi, di ba? Lambanog. At saka tahong. So, ito sa red tide. So, yan. These are just examples ng mga food items na na-link na sa mga foodborne diseases dito sa Pilipinas. Yan. So, dito sa Philippines, meron lang tayong food journal articles na nagre-report ng mga foodborne disease outbreaks. And according to the report of Asansa and Asansa et al., yung salmonella ang leading cause ng foodborne disease outbreak sa Pilipinas. Tapos yung, other microbiological causes ng foodborne disease outbreaks include Henipa virus, Entamoeba histolytica, Vibrio parahemolyticus, and E. coli. Pagdating naman sa chemicals and toxins, so nandyan yung staphylococcal enterotoxin, paralytic, yung PSP is paralytic shellfish poisoning. So ito ay caused by yung saxitoxin. Tetrodotoxin, so ito ay caused ng pufferfish. Ciguatoxin, cyanogenic glycoside, so ito yung nasa kasaba. Dioscorin, toxalbumin, curcin, carbamates, nitrate, and oxalic acid. So yung mga nakuha pa lang na reports nila Asansa and Asansa et al., actually 87% ng mga cases daw ay unknown yung causative agent. And sa mga na-mention na causative agents na to, itong mga naka-highlight in gray, so yan yung mga nakapag-cause na ng death. Yan na yung mga kapag-cause ng death. So yung outbreak locations na na-identify includes yung food service, eating facility, household, tapos other places like office, public gatherings, orphanage facility, jail, and kasama din yung unknown. Tapos yung mga implicated food vehicles naman includes meat-based dishes, fish and other seafood dishes, bakery and confectionery products, toxin-containing or inedible materials, noodles and pasta dishes, rice and root crops. So, pasok na pasok yung mga binigay niyong examples din kanina. Okay. So, ito yung latest sa foodborne disease dito sa Philippines ngayon. I don't know if narinig nyo to. So, nagkaroon ng anthrax cases sa Cagayan. So, yung anthrax, this is caused by Bacillus anthracis. So, ang nangyari, merong carabao na parang nakita na patay na. So, nang hinayang ngayon si farmer, so binutcher pa nila, so parang na-double dead siya. And after that, nagkasakit sila. Tapos yun pala, positive for anthrax. Yan. So, ano pa ba yung mga cases na yung related sa animal, sa food, na meron tayo? Yung wina-watch out ng bai. May alam po kayo? Or ako na? Yan, yung ASF or yung African swine fever. So sa tingin nyo ba yung ASF, ano ba to? Foodborne ba to? Naapektuhan ba tayo? Maapektuhan ba tayo kung kumain tayo ng karne na may ASF? May guess po ba?
Yes.
Swine flu. Ang sabi, ASF, swine flu.
Opo. Pwede po
Ayan.
ba siyang
No. May
maka-affect?
nag-no po. May
Ah,
nag-yes.
no.
Hindi po.
Okay.
Tapos may yes, yes, no. Ayan. Mix po. Yes and no. Tapos
So,
sabi ni Ma'am Hana, wala pa po atang case na na-transfer po sa humans yung disease.
yes, tama po. So, ang ASF, hindi siya natatransfer sa humans. And even yung avian flu. Yung sa chicken naman. Yan. So, given na meron tayong mga foodborne disease outbreaks, paano nga ba nagre-respond yung government natin sa mga ganitong events? So, in 2007, may nilabas po yung RITM na Manual of Procedures for the Surveillance, Outbreak, Investigation, and Response to Microbial Agents of Food and Waterborne Diseases. So, medyo makapal po ito na manual. So, in-extract ko lang itong outbreak investigation flowchart. So, nakalagay po dito ano yung step-by-step na gagawin pagka nagkaroon ng outbreak. So, ang pinaka may role dito actually is the LGU. So, sa kanila i-report and sila din yung magkakandak ng investigation. And aside from the investigation, pwede silang mag-send ng samples for if it is necessary, no, for further investigation. Yan. So, there are different samples na pwedeng ma-provide and itong samples na to, merong assigned din na government agency or institute para dito. So, ito yon. So, if human specimen, so dadalhin to sa local laboratory or sa RITM. Pag processed food naman, so luma pa kasi to, no? So, Bureau of Food and Drugs. So, ngayon, FDA. Pagka naman livestock, poultry, animal feeds and feed ingredients sa BAI or yung Bureau of Animal Industry. Tapos kapag meat and meat products sa National Meat Inspection Service. Pagka naman unprocessed plants and vegetables sa Bureau of Plant Industry. Tapos kapag raw milk or unprocessed dairy products sa National Dairy Authority. And kapag water sample sa East Avenue Medical Center. Yan. So aside from this, ayan, so eto, sorry. So very evident dito sa mga cases na to, no, na pinapractice naman pala siya for investigation. So dito, Salmonella found cause of Bulacan food poisoning. So human samples to, so dinala sa RITM. Kasi ito naman, food poisoning in Tondo. So sa RITM din, human samples. And then ito naman yung, ito ano to, very famous din to, yung milk tea na food poisoning. So yung ingredients na lang ng milk tea, pinadala sa FDA for checking. So aside from that manual, noong 2012 din na ipasa yung Food Safety Act of 2013. So dito sa Food Safety Act, nagkaroon ng Food Safety Regulation Coordinating Board. So kasama dito yung DOH, Department of Agriculture, DOST, DILG, and DTI. So yung isa sa objectives ng Food Safety Act ay yung i-protect yung public from foodborne and waterborne illnesses and unsanitary, unwholesome, misbranded, or adulterated foods. So included din sa Food Safety Act yung mga responsibilities ng mga agencies na kasama. So for example, yung DOH, the DOH shall be responsible for the safety of processed and prepackaged foods. So kasama dito yung local and imported na products. And they should also conduct monitoring and epidemiological studies on foodborne illnesses. Yan. So next naman yung DA and DOH and the LGU. So kailangan nilang mag-cooperate to monitor the presence of biological, chemical, and physical contaminants in food to determine the nature and sources of food safety hazards in the food supply chain. Yan. So yung DOH, specifically yung FDA Center for Food Regulation and Research. So responsible naman siya for implementing a performance-based food safety control management system. So dapat under this management system, mag-develop sila ng database of food safety hazards and foodborne illness based on epidemiological data. And under DOH pa din, so yung National Epidemiology Center, yung RITM, yung Research Institute of Tropical Medicine, and the National Center for Disease Prevention and Control shall conduct and document epidemiological monitoring studies on foodborne illnesses for use in risk-based policy formation. So food safety risk assessment bodies shall be established for this purpose. So yung DILG naman, specifically yung LGU, ito kanina siguro dun sa flowchart. They shall support the DOH and the DA in the collection and documentation of foodborne illness data, monitoring, and research. So, stated then under Article 10 of the Food Safety Act, yung foodborne illness monitoring, surveillance, and research. So, ayan. So, kailangan daw mag-implement ng mga programs such as yung Integrated Foodborne Disease Monitoring System that links the sources of food contamination. So ito ay work ng DOH-NEC at saka yung NCDEC. And identification of hazards in the food supply chain and assessment of levels of exposure to the hazard. So yung kasama din dito yung research. So the government and the academe shall develop and implement a program of research on cost-effective technologies and codes of practice for assisting farmers, fisherfolk, micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises, and other stakeholders to enable them to comply with food safety regulation. So actually kami dito sa ITBI, sumasali din kami sa development ng standards for food products and even yung code of practice for processing ng mga specific food products. Ayan. So, this is the last part of the presentation. Prevention of foodborne diseases. So, yung WHO, they have these 5 keys to safer food. So, zoom lang natin. So, number 1 is keep clean. So, keep clean by washing your hands and food contact surfaces that will be used for food preparation, and by keeping away pests and animals from the kitchen. So, number 2 is to separate the raw and cooked items by storing them in separate containers because drippings ng mga raw foods can contain harmful microorganisms, and if this comes in contact with cooked food, pwedeng ma-contaminate yan. So third is cook thoroughly. So meron ditong mention, cook food thoroughly, especially meat, poultry, eggs, and seafood. And at least it should reach 70 degrees Celsius to ensure yung safety niya for consumption. And if needed na mag-reheat, reheat cooked foods thoroughly. So keep food at safe temperature. So know your temperature danger zone. So ano ba yung temperature danger zone? It's between 5 degrees and 60 degrees. So between these temperatures, may possibility na mag-grow ang microorganisms. And last is to use safe water and raw material. So, laging gamitin natin is potable water. So, potable water, ito yung safe for drinking. And yung raw materials natin, let's ensure that it's always fresh and wholesome. So, wag tayong bumili ng mga double dead kung pagdating sa meat. Tapos, yung mga close to spoilage na mga ingredients, mapa-meat or fruits, vegetables. And then for our manufacturers naman, if we have manufacturers here, always ask for certificate of analysis para ma-ensure natin na maganda yung quality and safe yung mga raw materials. So this is from WHO. So these are other recommended food safety measures. So efficient foodborne disease surveillance and monitoring systems, food safety regulations and functioning inspection systems, food safety education programs, and effective emergency planning and relief. So far dun sa review naman natin kanina ng kung paano nagre-respond yung Philippine government. So mukhang in place naman ito sa atin. So that ends my presentation. So thank you and sana may na-pick up kayo na important notes